Buenas noches, guys.
Hello.
Welcome to season 2 of Moms on Air. Hold on, let me
Moms
get
on Air.
Moms
comfortable.
on Air. We are so excited to be here. I can't believe, guys, we did one whole season. Like, applause for us. That's a huge deal. I mean, as 3 different moms with different age groups as far as our kids and different lifestyles and different jobs and responsibilities, and still made it to season 2. Like,
Yes.
one more time, guys.
We were like, can we get past one episode? And here we are, couple episodes.
We
in.
definitely have a lot to look forward to season 2. We're definitely going to bring to you guys more topics and more.
And I think more consistency.
Yes.
I mean, we are moms on air, and let's just keep it where we're mothers. And being a mother is hard. And sometimes life passes, and, sometimes I'd even talk to my friends for a few days, and it's nothing personal. We're just moms. And days go by, and then schedules go by, and our schedules sometimes conflict. But season 2 means we are going to be a lot better with that.
Let's just be serious. It's not easy being a superhero, having these superpowers and giving life to people and raising them and treating them. The other day, my friend, she's a first-time mom, and I literally had this conversation, and it was talking about like if we were Superman. Like, girl, you've like fulfilled your mission on Earth. You made a human, and now you're gonna give birth to it. Because she was like, I got the whole birth plan, and I just heard you in my head.
Oh.
She's like, I'm gonna get my doula, and I'm gonna do this natural thing. And I was like, I'm gonna give you one advice. However the baby wants to come, it's gonna come, and you're still a great mom. That's all I gotta say. And she just started laughing. She was like, I know, I just gotta go with the flow. I feel like there's no need to explain. We're doing the best we can, and I'm having a great time doing this. To me, this is a therapy session. I say it all the time.
I agree with that. It's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned that because, today happens to be Mental Health Day. And I feel like giving birth has a lot to do with that. I mean, with Alexander, I know for sure I had depression at least for 3 months, which everyone gets the blues. But I feel like the reason I had a lot was a lot to do with social media and the perception of, not having a natural birth. And I had a C-section. And
Like, ideally, what's supposed to make sense and
yes,
be,
like for me, like what she just said, I thought I was going to have a natural birth. I thought I wasn't going to have epidural. I didn't think I needed to get induced. I didn't think I was going to pass my 40 weeks and not have the baby. And every step at the hospital was worse and worse. And then 3 days later, they popped my water. And it was horrible. And I was so depressed. I was like, wow, I'm not a good mother because I had a C-section. And now looking back, like, how silly that I
What's
think
that?
you know?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're so vulnerable and so emotional at that stage. And being a new mom, especially like a first-time mom, like your friend, you want to do everything the right way. And you think you can plan, and shit doesn't happen that way. Like, it doesn't.
It never goes as planned. And sometimes when things happen unplanned, they are even better than they were planned.
Now I looking back, like, I'm happy. I mean, my kids are, to me, they're perfect. I mean, I think every mom thinks their own children are perfect, right? So I think, and I'm happy the way things happen because that's how they were supposed to happen. And, I know for me, sometimes I like to control everything and I want things to happen a certain way. And let's just keep it real. That's not how it is. That's not how life is. And one thing you certainly can't control is how that baby's going to come out. There's nothing you could do. You can't.
Breach, it might be like,
We tried everything.
ass
We
out
vacuumed
first.
that baby's head. We did suction and nothing. That baby, my son, was fucking stubborn. That little 10-pound baby wanted to stay. He was comfortable.
Sheesh, 10 pounds. Nice and warm.
So we have a guest with us.
dun dun.
And?
Hello, everybody.
Also, Papi
He
Suave.
is not only a guest, he's one of my favorite people in the world, and he's family.
Yeah, he's one of
But-
my best friends. I think
I
I've
appreciate
known,
that stuff. Thank you.
We've known Salam for about, I know Salam for at least about, I want to say 20 years,
Yeah,
22 years.
Don't you guys know each other your whole life?
we have.
Yeah, I mean, like when we were little babies, well, not babies, but like kids. And I think
We've been hanging
Stephanie-
out for 22 years. Is what
Yeah.
she mentioned.
Yeah, you are not that young, boo. You were not a little baby 22 years ago.
we were like 4 or 5 when we met. Anyways, and I think you know him for about 10 years, right? If as long as us.
Yeah,
Probably.
it's been a little while.
So Salam is here today with us because today happens to be Mental Health Day, Mental Awareness Day, and
Mental Health Awareness Day.
yeah, Mental Health Awareness Day. and he works and deals with a lot of people in that area. So can you kind of just tell
Yeah.
us? I mean, I know you can't disclose
where-
anything because it's all confidential, but
So-
tell us what's a day in your job, like a day in the life of Salam at work.
All right. So first and foremost, I work for a mental health clinic in Harlem. It's a nonprofit. I won't disclose the name.
Woo!
Yes.
Is there like an applause button? Because I just want to keep talking.
And we
Yeah, I wanna
service we service clients who suffer from chronic medical conditions and severe mental health issues. So a lot of the clients that we have suffer from depression, schizophrenia, bipolarism. There are a lot of severe cases, and there are a lot of women who are diagnosed, and a lot of them who need help. And believe it or not, there are a lot of them who are moms. And Who are moms, yeah.
Wow.
And we've actually encountered some clients who are actually pregnant who are suffering from mental health issues.
So you feel like mental health issues is something that could be caused by trauma, or people are born like this in most cases, or most of your patients? Because sometimes something could happen in their life, like abuse and stuff like that, and holding that up and not getting the right therapy or really getting the right, that something that could progress into mental health, like bipolarness maybe?
I'll first say that I am not clinical, so whatever I say is based off of my experience. But I think that we all go through trauma, and there are different levels of trauma. But at the end of the day, we've all been through things. I think I've read things where they say women who give birth, that's a traumatic experience.
It is.
How many of you, in a show of hands, would say that your pregnancy or your giving birth was a traumatic experience?
Shit.
So some people don't. Some people, based off of that experience, never make it back. A lot of people. I think we all have different triggers. I think that mental health, depending on your developmental stage and wherever you are in life, it differs for every person. For every person's a different type of mental health, but a reaction, yeah. And I do think that there are forms with proper treatment and people who do take their medication, they can definitely live a very normal life.
So in that spirit, I know for some reason there's all these national days. So we have domestic violence awareness. We have also like for moms who lost a pregnancy or had a stillborn.
There's a day for everything.
There's a day for everything, but these days are kind of back to back this month. So
Which is kind of sad.
it's kind of sad,
And we're
right?
October, isn't it? Breast
Cancer.
awareness.
As women, there's like so many layers, right? Because as humans, you go through stuff consistently, but as women, as givers, I feel like mental health is so important because I don't know, there's so many women in my life personally, like in my family. I don't know whether it be the immigration story or the coming to another country, not knowing the language, adapting, still raising your kids, still trying to be a parent or whatever. But I know for my family specifically, a lot of them migrated here after like 86, 87, and they never really adapted. And I would say that a lot of my aunts are like, they can't sleep, they have to take Ambien, they're on antidepressants. I feel like, or do you think that women have a higher risk of suffering from like mental things because of our lifestyle and trauma?
Well, to answer the first question about the awareness, I think the reason why we have so many different events for different days is because we need to spread awareness so that people know that they're not alone in this and that there are other people who actually who have endured certain things as well.
Before you answer the second question, I wanted to add, I don't think awareness days are sad at all. I think they show unity and respect
I agree.
and educate people who are not on the same, predicament or living it with a sibling or anything, and to have a day dedicated to something that's a struggle in everybody's day life. We shouldn't really look at it sad. It's progress.
I agree.
And it brings us to where we are today, where we're not so blindsided from our parents, where we didn't know these things or how many people share, or to even be comfortable to talk about it.
I think, just to add on to that, I think that the joke that we were making is that there's like a day for everything. Like there's like a National Slurpee Day.
There's
Like,
a
I feel-
National
Taco
Cookie
Day.
Day.
Cookie, like I feel like
And
those are all
Chocolate Day.
pointless, but for the DV awareness and cancer awareness, I think that's all meant for us to move forward and help eventually, God willing, find a cure one day. But
I think all of our families, like I know at least growing up, so if there were families that had kids who, if there were families who had kids with a mental illness, or if someone had an outburst in life or did something inappropriate or something so bad, they only call the person crazy. They never they never gave it like a justification. They never said this person needs help. They always just kind of push him to the side and thought like that was just one odd person from the bunch. Like me and Salam kind of grew up in the same culture, and we kind of dealt with a lot of the same people. And I feel like it's unfortunate, but a lot of people were so closed-minded because they weren't educated. So like Arabic people and Islamic people, at least the people I grew up with, did not associate with any of that thing. Like a domestic violence, let's say there was a situation where a husband hit his wife, it was not like a huge deal back then, which now, like, you hit me once, you're going to jail, and you're gonna.
Well, I think
Even
people were
in third
afraid of the
world
unknown.
country, like the Dominican Republic, now that you mention that, since we are also on domestic violence and want to bring light to that, in the Dominican Republic, the laws are becoming so strict for domestic violence. Like, your wife could lock you up for you yelling at her.
Wow.
Because of social media, and it's
And not
changed
only
the world.
that,
Everything
so many
is being...
women in these third world countries have been killed by their husbands, and nothing is done.
I think
And
a lot
I'm
of that
very,
is
very
to
happy about that.
Think
idea.
like the Me Too movement, because we are nothing without women. Like,
We
my
wouldn't be
mom
here
is my
without us.
life, my sister's my life, my cousins. Like, women are what the foundation of this world, in my opinion. So I am
Thank
a
you.
proud Arab feminist. There we go.
Drop a bomb right now.
But I think in regards to mental health and women, to go back to your question, I think women are stronger than men, mentally, physically, and emotionally, because what you endure on a daily basis, I feel like men, we cannot even catch up.
Hello.
Like, I speak to Shireen almost every day, and the things that she shares with me on her day-to-day basis, I find it like, sometimes I'm like in awe of how she's able to accomplish all of it. And then, I just browse through social media, and Pro's in a team meeting eating Domino's pizza. Like, not to discredit Pro, love him, but, the level of intensity, she's watching the kids all the time. She's raising them. She's teaching
And Adam
them.
is so well behaved. She's so lucky.
Adam is not well behaved.
I was being sarcastic.
Okay, yeah. Adam is
I was like, I have
100,000
an angel
trillion
and one
million.
that fell from heaven.
That's a good way of putting it.
The other day he was doing this little thing, and they were like playing, and he threw like a toy at her, and she makes sure that she sent it to me personally. Like, look at Adam.
How about this? We go to the doctor the other day, right? 2 days ago. I don't know where did this stuff come from. So his doctor, the doctor comes, he goes, "Oh my God, your kid is so grown. God bless her, so well behaved. They're playing really quietly." So the nurse and the assistant are right there. So Alexander's just playing with his trains because they have a train table there. So they have little benches for the little kids when they go to the doctor's office. So he's about to sit down. Adam goes behind him and moves the bench, knowing that he's going to fall. I don't know how he knew that. And he fell.
And then his little
And
face
he goes like this. He goes. And to see if I peeped that, and everyone behind me started laughing. The doctor, everyone, because they couldn't
It's
believe that he did that.
hilarious,
And
yeah.
Adam is so
Adam
small
is
for his
smarter
age,
than we
so-
know.
Yeah.
My friend says kids are born bad. You as a parent have to make them good.
I mean, we're trying, but
That's a good way
I
of
don't
putting
know.
it.
I believe it because
I
these
do
kids come up with some things, I tell you.
I mean, maybe I'm not doing a good job with Adam because
We have a
No,
tired
you are
mom
doing
today.
an
Alexander
excellent-
he's so well mannered,
But
and so
it's
patient.
like, look, two kids are like two relationships. Nothing is the same.
No,
Think
I
of it
know, you
like
can't
that.
compare.
You
You
can
think you
compare.
have-
You
Can't.
are very different from your sisters. Maybe the little one, she's gonna kill me for this. The younger, she wants to be
Shout out
like
to
you.
Amira.
Shouts to
She
Amira.
gives me a headache.
But all you guys are very different. I know
No,
all you
we are,
girls
yeah.
and different personalities, and y'all
Yeah.
grew up in the same home. So it's not fair for you to blame yourself. Adam is lit. He's going through a stage, and it's gonna be fine.
I think he's just going to his, they Terrible Twos just before Terrible Twos hits.
I think he's a rock star. He
He
has
is
a
he
strong
knows he's a rock
And
star.
I'll tell you, right now, Zoe's 7. The other day I was going through my phone and I was looking, you know how you get reminders from like 5 years ago. She has whatever she is now, she was the same way at that age. It's just,
An
at
amplified
7
version.
now. Yeah, so homegirl pulls up with a bathing suit that was 2T. and some shorts that are like 18
recently?
months that she found in like a bag from her old clothes. I was like, Mom, I think I should wear this. This is good.
Her dad would
Walking around the whole house. I'm like, Zoe, go put clothes on. I do have clothes. Like, she's so sassy. And when she
that
was
is
a baby,
Zoe's personality.
when she was a baby, it was the same thing. Like, somebody would go to carry her. She'd be like, oh, like, don't touch me.
I'm surprised Zoe's not
Like,
on Disney Channel or at least Nickelodeon.
yeah, like
That
when-
girl deserves a show. She is she's
But
like
I
a
feel
full
like,
personality.
You know, Zoe and like Nia was so calm.
I
and
don't
the
know if it's a
cutest and,
second child syndrome, and I only say that because when you have the first baby, you and the baby experience everything for the first time, like new. Like you're a new mom, he's a new baby, so you're learning his cries just like you are. You're learning to become a mom. With the second baby, like when you first have a child and they cry a lot, you think they're gonna die when they cry a lot. I thought, damn, he's crying a lot. Like I remember this one night, and it's so crazy because you could have a bunch of amazing memories, but you always fucking remember the bad shit.
that one bad day.
So
when they
I
pooped
remember
everywhere.
Alexander, like we were transitioning from breast milk and baby formula, and because I wasn't eating a lot when I had Alexander because I was so depressed, so I wasn't producing a lot of milk, and I was
Which made you more
pumping,
depressed.
and it made me more depressed because I was like, damn, I'm definitely not a good one. I had a C-section and I can't breastfeed this baby. Like, what's gonna happen? So I was feeding him, like when you come from the hospital and you have like the formula they give you and they're like soft. So he's crying, he wouldn't eat the bottle. So I was like, just eat! And I squeezed the bottle and the bottle exploded.
Oh shit!
And mind you, Alexander's small, and and my husband's having like a fit too because he don't know, like he didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do, and I just squeezed the bottle, and the whole bottle, it was like 2 ounces,
was
and that's a
breast
lot.
milk?
No, it was formula.
Oh, I was about to say.
I would have died if it was breast milk.
Girls,
Where did
when
it
they
splatter?
say- Yo, you know when
Where
they
did
say
it-
Lick it, take him on the floor.
Where did it splatter?
don't cry
On his face and myself because the baby was close
Yeah.
to me. And he was crying. He couldn't stop crying. He was gagging because he was crying so much with the formula.
God.
I thought he was going to die. And my husband was screaming at me, trying to deal with the situation. He was making me more paranoid, making me more nervous. I'm like, you're not helping. So me and the baby just closed the bathroom door and we're just crying. And all I remember is while we were crying, I have a gold bathroom. Look at these fucking colors. I'm crying. And I used to love that bathroom. And ever since that moment happened, I hate that bathroom's color. I always tell my husband we have to change it. But it's because of that moment of how like traumatic it was.
and then you're in
And
there.
it's so funny. But so now, and then when Adam, he cried so much, I'm like, he's gonna be okay. He's fine. Just let him go. It was so opposite with Alexander. He got like 100% attentive care. And with Adam, it's completely different. So I think maybe that's why they're like, I feel like it's a second child syndrome. Every kid's different,
Would you say that you're getting, and I'm just assuming what people would assume, is it that you're, I don't want to say lazy, but is it that you're more...
I feel like the commercial live and learn and then get Loves. Loves is like the lesser brand of diaper.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, you're like, I'm going to buy the paños and I'm
Yeah.
going to buy the most expensive, whatever. The next baby, you're like, all right. So
Yeah.
the diapers, I got to get
Yeah.
the good kind. But
So you're more experienced, so you know how to tackle things on
I do.
more.
I feel like, I have 2 kids 15 months apart. And it's kind of sad because they say have kids fast, back to back, so they grow up together. But the first few years of life is crucial too. Like I recommend people waiting, and only because you want to give kids undivided attention. Like I have a 3-year-old and a 15 months. So when I had Adam, Alexander was he was about to be 2 and he was 1.5. So it's a really crucial age in a kid. They're like month-to-month milestones, So now here I have a newborn who needs 24-hour attention and a toddler who needs 24-hour attention because
Agreed.
there's so many milestones. And now that Alexander goes to school, he comes home and he wants to learn. He wants to do these things and he's talking and he does all this. And Adam needs attention too. So it's really hard. So I do recommend moms who are considering having other kids and who have small kids. They say get them, like, I know our ancestors and our grandmas, go back to back. Come on, have
Do not
the
let
kids.
my aunt hear her say that. She will come after her.
Yeah, I know. My
like
mom.
I have a 3-year gap. And I remember I was taking Nia to like preschool. And I'm like pregnant as hell, trying to tie her sneaker. And the preschool teacher's like, no, Mom, you're having another baby. Now you got to let the kid be self-sufficient. She has to pass you diapers. She has to whatever. And I feel like the age I have is great. But the setback is they fight so
3. But 3 is not
much.
bad because now Alexander, I feel like, is really advanced for his age. Like now he'd assist. Like now he's on the potty by himself. I don't have to worry about diapers. Like, it's different. I feel like when they're going to fight because even now Adam and him, they fight a lot. They don't fight. They just scream because Adam doesn't talk.
Shireen, you fight with all your sisters. You're all different age groups.
We're all 9 months apart.
Oh
My
Mama
one
wasn't
sister's in
playing.
February. And
Mother
all of
was
us are in
pregnant for
March.
7
I
years
told you my
straight.
aunt hears her talking.
Well, me and my sister fight all the time, and we're 5 years apart. It makes you feel any better.
But I think once you become an adult, it doesn't matter anymore.
I don't fight with my
feel like
siblings.
what you said?
I fight with the youngest one. Believe
You
it
don't
or
fight
not.
with your brothers?
Probably the youngest one the most. He's an Aries, just like you. He's very hard-headed, stubborn.
Aries are the fucking.
You know, it's
Team Leo.
with being a mom and like mental health, it's like you don't have time to have a flu, to have a mental breakdown or nothing. So it's so tough because sometimes you got to pretend to your immediate family and
since
to the
this
world
is
you're
for
okay.
mental health awareness, as a mom, what do you deem a mental breakdown?
What do I deem a mental
Like
breakdown?
what have you ever had experience where you've had a mental breakdown? Like maybe you're getting ready to go. So like what's this? Walk me through it.
For me, like in front of when Nia was little, I had a lot of mental breakdowns because I was like single mom going through like all this shit, ghetto movie shit, like some Boys in the Hood, baby mama
It
drama,
was
right?
like a
And
movie.
it was just me and her. I remember one day we're sitting in the Bronx in the apartment. It's like a heat wave, hot as hell.
Wow.
Homeboy was like in the club, I guess, the night before. It's like 11, not up, and we're supposed to go buy air conditioner because it's hot and it's the summer and the baby. So Nia had this heat rash, like a heat rash all through her body. And I remember sweating, like tied my shirt, sweating hot. I got his brother and sister, his mom's not there. Like I got all these kids and me and my baby. And I remember just crying and I screamed really loud, like, and it felt so good. But I just remember feeling helpless and useless and hopeless, and all because of a heat rash. I felt like I was such a bad mom.
Broke it down though, but it was everything.
Yeah, like me, I screamed so loud, and the kids and everybody was looking at me, and then I was like, all right, I gotta get I felt so bad that they witnessed that, and I made like the best dinner, and then we went to the park, and I made sure like
But
really
you had
have
your
a
moment.
great day, but I had a breakdown.
And see, even as moms, you have a breakdown, but you feel so guilty. Like the other day, I was just in a bad mood, and like I was just thinking about a lot of things, and you just have one of your funks, and I was in a funk, and Alexander was saying something, and him and Adam were crying. I was like, I was like, just stop. And I just screamed at both of them, and they both looked, and these were like this. And when they gave me that sad puppy eye face, I was like, oh my God, I'm such a bad mom.
Yeah.
And then I just left, and I went to the bathroom, and they took their iPads.
But moms
went
are
on the
human.
iPad.
You guys are entitled to.
And I came
feel
back
and not have
we
a
went
good
to go eat, and I
day.
bought the Matt toys to make myself feel better.
And I feel like that's the
Wow.
biggest miscommunication is that as a mom, which you all are, you're supposed to be perfect 24/7. And I feel we have to break that stigma that you're entitled to have a bad day. You're entitled to hate your kid one day. You're entitled to, I don't know, like be
Have my
fucking selfish
moment.
once in a
Right,
while, you
but,
know?
but talking about taking a day, how do you feel? How do people apply that mental health day that they could request at work now? People could take
Some
a mental health
companies-
day off. I was reading about that before.
Well, I think they
that's
co-
Google and so a lot of digital companies are trying
Yeah.
to pave the way for that. They're even trying to give like if you have your period, that's your sick day
Yeah.
or whatever. So and even like longer maternity leaves like other countries. So Google's doing that, Facebook, like a lot of the newer companies, and like
And there are even men now who can take a leave as well because they're expecting a child too.
Well, and I think that's and I commend men and I commend jobs and owners that give that option, because having a kid, like I cannot imagine having Adam and Alexander by myself. Like my husband works a lot, but the help is there, and just the emotional support, like just having someone there. Yeah, it's hard being
And
a
Pearl's a
single
great
mom.
father,
And he
so.
is. I can't. I mean, he's very paranoid and wants everything perfect, but other than that, he's a very hands-on dad, and he helps a lot with the kids. Like, and I look at some moms and like single moms, and I commend them. Like, it's fucking a lot of work. Like, it's a lot.
It's a struggle.
and I want to say like, because I feel like even when you're talking to your friends, and I feel like podcast is like talking to your friends, but like when you're telling them about your man, you kind of tell them, oh, this nigga came late and he didn't do this and da, 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 da. But being a mom, like if I could go back to the day before I got pregnant and like my journey in life, I would still be a mom. Like, I don't think my life would be as amazing if I were not a mom, if that makes sense. Like,
I agree.
the love that I feel for those humans, I've never felt before. Like, I don't know. It's like something so crazy. And that's why when you say, like, women were better than men, I feel like that's why God knew we were stronger. And he that attachment where it takes 9 months of the baby living inside of you and growing in you, and then you face death to give birth, basically. And that whole process has to happen, and that's where the love is, from like that struggle and that union and the birth, the whole process. And sometimes, and this is my opinion, I'm not clinical either, but I feel like for men, maybe that's why it's so easy to separate and not be there, because I feel like so many men can break away from their kids.
Well, I think so many men, like, they leave the emotional aspect to their partner.
Right.
Like, I know Pro leans on Shireen. I know Ray more than likely leans on you. So they, you guys are more of the nurturers,
Right.
and they're more of the go-getters.
They're like, we're the provider.
Yeah, we're the providers.
It
so.
makes, and it makes a lot of sense because you have that bond, and not saying that the father doesn't, because obviously it's the father's sperm who makes the baby.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is you have that bond, like you hear the heartbeat, you feel the kicks. Like, yeah, you can put your hand on the belly and feel it, but it's not the same. You know what's inside of you. Like when you talk to your baby, and when you get to those certain weeks, you hear the baby moving. Like you feel a connection. And men can't feel that because they don't have nothing inside of them. And I feel like
Hey, we have things inside of us, but
No, he's just saying
we can't relate to that level because we can't bear children.
Literally, like, it's flesh of your flesh, blood of your blood. Like it's something. It's
That
such
bond-
a deep connection.
That bond between you and the child, I think that a father or a dad, whatever, can never. Not that they can't have that, but it can never be to the level.
No, they literally can't have.
They
that.
can never be at the level
Like, they
of
can't
a
have
woman
So
because
I
she
have a
bears
question,
a child.
Salam. Being that you're a guest and you work at a mental health nonprofit organization, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask, what is, and you don't have to disclose any names or just
Of
like
course, yeah.
scenarios or like fake names or
HIPAA.
but what can you tell us? Like, can you kind of describe one crazy incident that happened with a mom? Like, because sometimes me and you speak a lot, right? So, like, we'll FaceTime and he'll put me on mute and I'll hear some of the conversations people call and I'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened,
Well, I'll take it back to when I used to work at Bellevue Hospital. Similar case. I used to work at Bellevue, and
That's like a mental hospital.
it's a city hospital, so a lot of people who homeless and people who have mental health issues do come there a lot.
Okay.
So I was helping the nurse triage someone. I used to work in the registrar's office, and a woman came in and she had 2 children, and she's in the pediatrics, so it's considered peds. And she goes to us. We're like, I'm like, hey, what are you here for? She's like, oh, my kids were shot. So I'm like typing up the notes. I'm like, okay, shot with what? Like a needle or like what? Oh no, they were like gunshots. So like I immediately turn around to look at the children, and the children are playing on their iPads. They're having a great time. So at this point, I know that the woman who is
Not sane.
she's not sane, and she's begins to fabricate a story that she believes. So immediately the nurse comes and she's asking her questions, and we see in that moment that she has some mental health issues. So what we have to do at that point is remove the children from her and send her straight to the psychiatric unit to get an evaluation.
Oh my God, let's take a moment for that. Seriously.
Yeah, because she at that moment really believed that her children were shot. Like, she's actually holding her son, showing us where the bullet wound is.
Okay.
And the kid is perfectly normal.
Okay.
No bullet wound or anything. So at that moment, she's
That's so
exuding some
sad.
mental health concerns. So our job was to remove the children from her care, get, child protective services involved, and then send her over to the psychiatric unit at Bellevue to get an evaluation because she needed some help at that moment. So I feel like that for me was one of the hard times because I feel like, one, her children are in her care, but at the same time, because she's not getting the help that she needs with her mental health, those kids were practically in danger, in my opinion.
Right. No, 100%.
She at that moment, she was splitting. She didn't really know what she was saying. Her reality wasn't really what it was there. So,
And it could be a lot of things, right? It could be some trauma that
Definitely
can make
trauma.
you envision things.
Mhm.
It could be a chemical imbalance
Agreed.
with
Lack
the
of
trauma.
sleep. Like,
it could be
so many things you could
overworking.
hallucinate. Yeah.
Like I myself, like my mom's a diagnosed schizophrenic, and
Okay.
her diagnosis has been, I want to say, I was in high school when it happened, and it really shook my world because my mom was great, normal, whatever. But and I don't know, because sometimes it could be a spiritual thing, right? Because you tell a doctor in the U.S., like, oh, I'm a prophet, or I go to church and whatever, and I hear voices, and there's a lot of things that can say you're schizophrenic. Like, if you think someone's following you, if you hear voices, if you, like, there's
There's
lot
some of the symptoms.
checklists to say, whatever the symptoms are. So as a kid, I remember I was in high school. It was like, I had to take SATs to get to college, and my mom had her mental break or whatever. And now as an adult, I think about, 3 kids, the mental break. My brother was like really young, and I feel like a lot of his personalities and insecurities and how he deals with life is because of what age he was when my mom had the break.
How old was your mom at the time?
In her 30s.
Because they say,
40s.
and this is just research that I've read on my own, that a lot of people who develop schizophrenia develop it later on in their life.
Yeah, but like my mom had a lot of trauma, and as a woman now, like after reading her files and like trying to get her medication to not be so much or whatever, like I learned what she went through as a kid. And then that's why I always go back to like what you go through as a kid. Like my grandmother came to America, left her in DR at like 14, 15. So she was raised with uncles. She went through a lot of trauma. A lot of things happened to her as a kid. She kind of had to sleep in this house, that house, this house. So my grandma kind of came back. Yeah. So a lot of those things and some of her traumas were kind of what triggered her thing. Fast forward to us and me, like let's say being in high school. And the fact that my dad was there and he's always been the constant for us is why, like, there's 3 kids who were able to manage and be successful. But there's definitely, like, a part of me as a person that still, like, sometimes questions mental health. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, she's faking it. Like, she's just being, like, annoying or lazy or whatever. And I just constantly have to remind myself, like, no, it's a real thing. Like, mental illness is just like a diabetes, like a cholesterol. Like, that lady really thought the kids were shot because she could probably visually see that.
And it's been proven that the medication that people take for mental health, like schizophrenia, bipolarism, is scientifically proven to delay you. So you are more fatigued, you're slower, you're
tired,
drowsy, you need to sleep more hours, and that's why it's just such a conflict of interest, I guess I can say, because people sometimes can't prosper in life because they're being held back because of their medication.
Right.
But if they don't take their medication, then they're considered a hazard in society.
It's funny you mentioned that. So like this month, and we're talking about the movie Joker. I don't know if anybody watched it.
I haven't seen it. I'm actually watching it tomorrow.
He's won probably 90% or no, 100% going to win Best Oscar. He hands down did a phenomenal job. But the whole movie is really based on mental health and just the way he started. So I'm just going to give you, well, you guys all watched the Joker movie before, right? So you kind of know his story a little bit. So basically, he was adopted by his mom, and his mom had mental health issues, but she didn't accept that. So make a long story short, his mom worked for a wealthy family, and she wanted to adopt. So she adopted a boy, and she happened to date a man who also had mental health issues. So you're talking about 2 people with mental health issues who adopted a boy. And so when they, I guess they heard screams, and this boy has been going through so much trauma. So the mom and the dad have been abusing the boy, like constantly abusing him and just banging him in the head constantly. So you guys know how fragile kids are, especially, their head area, banging, just so much abuse. You can just picture. And then the mom, and when they interview them and they bring them in, they thought that he had like a bad spirit on him or something, and that they could sense and they could feel, and that they both felt that they needed to beat it out of him.
That's when the religious aspect comes into mental health, because a lot of people think that the person may be possessed, or in the Arab world there's a jinn inside of him or her.
No, for sure. Yeah. And so he grew up suffering and then got diagnosed later on in his life and took the medication, kind of was monotone, never could succeed, lived his life as a clown. Like, it's very sad, and then one point decides not to take the medication. Not to take his medication, and feels like he's free, but like you said, a hazard to society, and just goes crazy, does really crazy things, but to him don't seem that crazy. And just throughout the whole United States recently, like after when the movie came out, there were cop cars at every movie theater. Like we went to see it at IPEC, and there were 3 cop cars in front. because and mental health is such a big issue. I know probably a lot of people who have mental health went to probably see the movie, and that movie would, if you did have a mental health issue, it would trigger it.
Didn't it happen years ago where the guy showed up a movie theater?
I think
He
it was for the
did, yeah.
Batman movie.
I don't know what movie
I
it
bet
was.
if
but
I watched that movie, I'll probably cry. I've watched other movies like a Mommy Dearest or like
Oh my
other
God.
movies where
Great
there's
movie.
certain moments where maybe that specifically didn't happen to me, but me like where I can picture myself being younger or like certain things that happened to me or like whatever where it's a trigger. Anything to me with like mental health or whatever. Like to me, you could call me a bitch, a hoe, or this or that, but don't call me crazy. Crazy is a bad
That's a
word
trigger
for
word
me.
for
It's
you.
a trigger word for me.
Because there's such a
it's-
negative connotation to it, and the people who have mental health issues, people identify them as being crazy, but in reality they're not. They just have a chemical imbalance where they
yeah.
need certain things and certain interventions in place to help them. But
Right. And there's so many levels to it. It's like a spectrum as well, right? There's some people that can work and be on the medication and fully function. There's some people that have never taken a medication and you think they're okay, but then they'll have a trigger moment.
at my
So-
job, we have clients who some even have a master's degree, and
a lot have
and their
a
diagnosis
master's
came later on in life, and some are, it happened
So-
really young.
Now I have a question. You say their diagnosis comes. So now, when do you diagnose something? When something traumatic happens, and then you're like, they did this because of this. Like, how do you get
It's
diagnosed?
like a herpes. You gotta have an
So like
outbreak.
you go to look, masters, like right now you're currently going for your masters, right? Which
I'm getting my
commend you
master's in
for.
counseling. Yes.
He finishes in a few months. He'll be graduating from
May,
his
inshallah.
masters, and God willing.
Dika, what's your fee since you're not certified?
And I don't know how people can go through life, go through school, and like do all that, and then later on get diagnosed. Like, how do you know?
Because
what
there are certain
happens for you to
people
get
who
diagnosed?
have a breaking point, in my opinion, and that's what I think it is.
Right.
Like you,
Like that one day in the golden bathroom. If
Yeah.
from that day forward you would always be moody and
Yeah.
then that would have been a breaking point. Most of us have something in our brains that allow us to be angry and upset
cope.
and cope with it. That's why too, like as a country, I feel like we're so into labels too. Because
Agreed.
as humans, we have levels. There's levels to emotions. And
Everything's a
that doesn't mean I'm
label.
bipolar. I could feel like, like there's a lot of emotions we can go through. We don't have to be labeled as something. And then people are so quick to have to medicate. So it's definitely great to have a professional opinion and like monitor and go to therapy and figure out other ways. But I feel like there's some people who need to be medicated.
I agree with that. I feel like some of the clients that we have that struggle, some of them want a more holistic approach, but sometimes it's not more realistic for their type of treatment plan. And I think that I don't know mental health in its entirety. I don't think anyone really does. Every case is different. Every person's diagnosis is different. But I think that the medication is meant to help them kind of reinstate their independence within society. But sometimes it can also hinder it because it holds them back from prospering because the
side
fatigue, the
effects.
tiredness, the laziness. But in reality, they can't. The dependency on
I
it.
think that's
exactly.
every medication. Like my mother-in-law has multiple sclerosis, right? And she was diagnosed. She was driving with my husband and his sister, his older sister, and she just literally was driving down the highway in Florida, and she couldn't see. And she would and then her daughter had to grab the steering wheel and they almost crashed. And then they had to park the car. His sister was 16 at that time. So I think he was 14 or 13. And she's like, I couldn't see. And so they took her to the hospital. Like they called 911. The ambulance took them, and she was blind for 6 months. So they took a lot of tests, and she happened to have multiple sclerosis. So at that moment, she would take I think 30 to 40 pills a day, a lot. And so now, 20 years later, I see she'll come and she'll still take the same amount of pills. So recently she's trying to go through a more holistic route, trying to avoid. But, with multiple sclerosis, you're constantly in pain, and it's also a mental illness because you're mentally you always feel like you're in pain. So when your doctor tells you your diagnosis, they tell you what you're supposed to feel and what's supposed to happen. So mentally you feel like you have that even if you don't, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
And so recently she had to go to the doctor for her teeth, and because she took so much medication for so long, she lost a lot of her memory. There's parts of her life that she doesn't remember. she also has these scenarios that never happen. Like we'll talk, she'll like even recently, you know, when you talk to her, you don't think nothing's wrong. We'll have a conversation and she'll talk to me about something that me and her did. And I'm like, we never did that. But you know, I never want to like disrespect her.
Yeah.
So I don't say
That's
this. So I'll tell my
crazy.
husband, I'm like, you know, your mom thinks I did this, but we didn't do that. And she would get upset why I didn't like invite her the second time when there was never even a first time, you know, and scenarios like that. So she happened to go to the dentist and her whole gums are deteriorating. She can't like, there's so much bad side effects because of the medication she had to take for her illness. So it's like, what do you do? Not take the illness, not take the medication. Like, what do you do in
That's the $1 million question. You take it or you don't. What are your options?
But
you have to weigh pros and cons.
It's crazy because in that conversation, think about that. She has a 16-year-old, 14-year-old in the car, and you're a mom with a diagnosis, and you still have to be mom.
Well, she
You
on
still have to function.
that was the day she was diagnosed.
Right.
She was blind when she was
Yeah.
driving. Like they almost
Yeah.
crashed.
She
but
lost
his
her sight.
sister, like,
That's a
took
traumatic
steering wheel.
experience. How was Pro and
She,
Trish?
I think his sister, because of that, I think that moment triggered her. She suffers from
severe anxiety.
very severe anxiety. Like she can't even go on an airplane. Like only reason she started taking an airplane because she suffered really badly. And like even if we go, like when she comes to stay with us, we'll drive through a tunnel, and like I have to make sure we drive through tunnels with no traffic because she
You
gets
see,
like
your trauma,
hyperventilates
your
and-
trauma follows you, but it shouldn't define you.
Right.
Because she did eventually
What are
come
some
flying.
things, like, what can you suggest? Like, what are some ways of coping? Like, when you have these anxiety breaks, what do you think has...
I think, I'll speak about my own experience because I don't suffer from anxiety, but I have had anxiety-driven moments, I guess you can say. I think one important thing they always say is like to get up and take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you drink water, it brings your cortisol levels down, so you actually will kind of like start to decrease your adrenaline and everything. Some people writing is important. I think every person
Find
is
what
different.
works for you.
Finding what works
reading,
for
working
you.
out, running. Everyone has something. that lets
Zoe,
off.
my 7-year-old, she gets, I don't know if it's when she's tired, she get like overdrive hyper or whatever, but she's like, sometimes to the point where I'm like, is she a hyper kid? Because she'll get like this crazy
Like
burst
you mean
of,
ADD? Like you're talking
no,
about
like super, like, oh my God, I'm bored. I want to do something. Whatever. Or if she gets mad, it's like, like her heart races and she whatever. And it sounds really silly, but breathing.
Breathing is number one.
Yeah.
When you
because
give birth to give
when
birth,
you
they
breathe-
tell you to breathe. They
Yeah,
give
like
you a whole
it's just
breathing
that
thing.
like 10 breaths, like deep breath. When you're really angry, you feel like you're about to punch your kid or throw them through the wall or whatever. Those 10 breaths, you literally are bringing oxygen to your brain, and it allows your body to kind of go into a relaxed mode. And for me, I've done that a lot of times, and it's probably saved me from doing things I would really regret. And even
Breathing
for
is
her as a kid, it's something we do. Like if she's so mad because somebody ate her ice cream and whatever the crap like kids are mad about, she now goes and she'll breathe and count like, wait, I got 3 more, and then she'll be like, mommy, and she'll tell me.
The countdown is also really good too. Kind of brings
By
me
the time you
down.
get to like 10, 9, 8, you're kind of a little bit more, you know,
You
monotone.
realize how ridiculous.
For you, Stephanie, you know, I mean, when Bash got diagnosed at 5, you know, I'm sure you've had traumatic experiences. You know, I know dealing with an autistic child is different, and I know you had to, like, you were a new mom, especially dealing with that. Like, you had to go through so many things, and especially being out in public. Like, I know sometimes you've mentioned, like, you were on a plane, and the plane got delayed, and luckily you were with your family. But in scenarios where you were not, you know,
I'm listening to you guys, and I feel like I'm afraid that I'm gonna have a trauma one day. I've been so strong in life, and I don't think that I could single out, like, my son's father died before Sebastian
was diagnosed.
was diagnosed, and I live with the guilt that my son wasn't gonna have a memory with his dad. So like all my things in life has been about like what the other person is not receiving, not what I'm losing, like raising my son together as a parent. So I don't ever want to hit that stage in my life where I guess I put myself first in front of a trauma, if that makes any sense, if you're following me. Because I think that's going to break me down for real.
But you don't think you've ever had a scenario
I've
where
had
you've
moments, but I can't really tell you, like, even let's take it back to everything, like relationships. I've been in abusive relationships, everything that we could take. I've had my moments, but I always push through.
But for
But-
your son, in essence.
What is your strength to push through?
Obviously, I mean, always has been Sebastian, which I spoke to this lady at the nail salon the other day, this church lady, and she's like, you're committing such a big sin because you're supposed to say you're the daughter of God before you say you're a mother. And like, I don't see myself of nothing but my
That's your
son.
mom.
Like, if something was to happen to that kid, I would die. But I mean, God forbid. But like, so I'm listening to you guys, and yes, I've been through a lot. Mind you, like my dad did 14 years in jail. I saw my mom work alone by herself. Like, I seen mad shit. Like somebody pulled a gun on us before when we was real little. Like one of my mom's good friends, we was in his car, and like my sister was sleeping. I saw that. But it's like, and sometimes I have flashbacks of certain things, but I cannot really tell you. Yes, I've had breakdowns. I've cried. I was not depressed after I had Sebastian. I feel like I've been very angry, not really depressed. If
So
that's
that's
it.
your mechanism.
Yeah, I've been very angry
That's
at
a
a
New
lot
York
of things.
thing, I think.
Like I'm angry that my son is diagnosed. I'm glad that he doesn't have a memory with his dad. I'm mad that he doesn't have a memory with his dad. I'm mad that I miss so much of my dad. As it's growing up, because me and him have such a dark bond. Like so I feel like stuff like that. But I don't think. And then my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. And I sometimes think, like, am I going to inherit that? Like, is that going to happen to me? Is it going to be at one point that my brain is just going to be like, you're not a robot, like, break?
So like fear and anger, kind of.
I think, I've just been very angry a lot. Like, I'm angry a lot. And
How do you cope with that anger
I just feel
and
like
not
I've
make
been
it like
seeing so many things happen throughout my life that were not like the fairy tale ending story. Like seeing my mom go through a second marriage. Like my little sister always was little things. Like Janice was always really sick growing up. Like I had to step to the plate while I was like 9, 10 and like watch my sister during the day and get her dressed and go to school. So like I feel like it's been a feeling that I've held for so long that is my norm. Like things are not perfectly
You've got
happy
accustomed
for
for so long
me.
that that's what it is.
Like
It's
you're
just
like,
what
I'm
it
just
is.
the person that gotta constantly fight a battle.
Yeah, like it's just what it's been, and a
this
little
is a
things,
true New York story.
like it's just what it's been for me, and no, it's not okay. Like I think I will be more like perfection scares me, or like happy ending scares me,
Like, there's
because
no
I haven't
Disney story
experienced
here.
that.
So that means that your experiences, although they may not be traumatic, they do hinder your future because
No,
you
they are
use them.
traumatic, but
But
there's
you
so
don't hear what
many
she said.
traumatic
She just
things.
said she, in her world, there's never gonna be a.
That's what
a
I'm saying.
happy
Because
ending.
of her experiences, she thinks that will never be.
We're all gonna cry at the wedding, like.
You made it.
Wedding.
You made
I'll
it.
probably be like in San Tropez with my kid when he's like 21 in a yacht or something. Like that's my happy ending. Me and him somewhere in the middle of the world. But I'm content with that. Like that's okay. Like somebody might hear this and maybe be like, I'm at a disadvantage, and I don't feel like I am. And I think maybe that's why I haven't broken down. Like that's my
Well, I think it's
happiness.
important to know that you are an alpha female,
Right.
and you are also a Scorpio. So that's like
Even in her talking,
Two
you know
alpha
how they,
females
you
don't
know
lie.
how they say God gives you a load you can carry. I hate that statement, by the way. But I feel like you kind of embody that.
Oh my God, yes. And when people go through shit, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but so many people are like, God gives their toughest battles to their strongest soul. And I'm sorry, I've said that before to someone who's going through something serious because I don't know what else to say.
Well, you know what, friend? It's okay.
Because when someone
Well, tell God I sit. My,
You know,
I
I
can't
try to-
bench press no
Look,
more.
I try to be optimistic, and sometimes like you want to be like, fuck it, let's just cry. But you want to be like that positive friend. And I always try to throw positivity around,
But you know,
cried twice.
I can't cry for nothing. Not even at my wedding I cried because I didn't want to mess up my
I feel
makeup.
like I'm so
I've seen
cool.
I've seen
AD's wedding.
Shireen
AD's
cry. I've
oh my
known her
God,
for
AD's,
over 2 decades.
funeral,
I've seen her
you
cry like twice.
You don't cry.
The first time I saw her cry was when we were late
don't
to
cry
drop her
like-
off at the airport
And
to pick up her
recently
wedding
I
dress.
cried when I went.
Oh,
no, I didn't cry.
wow.
She
When?
almost missed her Dubai flight. That's when she cried.
Yeah, my wedding was 7 days away. And I fucking was like 30 minutes away. And I looked at the lady and she just looked at me. She probably looked at me. She's like, just let this luggage pass. I don't care. I was still going to go with the
But
luggage.
she like bursted out in tears.
But no, I never cry. It has to be like something at that moment makes me cry.
But you see,
It's
that
very
bothers
different.
me.
But
Let me
that's
tell
my
you why.
mother.
Let me
Which
tell you
I
why.
said the
My
other
mom
day
can't
to
cry for
someone to-
nothing. I'm
Well,
the
so
same.
like
I'm
I
the
said
same.
this lady I'm really close. Her name is Renee, and me and her both were saying the same thing. Like I don't cry all the time, but if I cry, like believe it. Like my sister, and I'm surprised because you're Aries. My sister cries like crystal on cue.
That's an
bro.
April. Aries cry a
Yo,
lot.
my sister should be like, but oh my It'll be from her soul. Like, that's a talent. I wish I had
I
that.
can't cry like that.
You see, for me, like I always say this in my practice and in everything. I say I want you to go through it, not over it. Like I feel like people always want you to go through your pain.
Okay, with
just
the
like
quotes. Next picture, you sending
No,
me a
but it's the
card?
truth.
Holler!
No, but it's true. I really feel like people need to process their pain and process their trauma and process what they're going through. And I feel like
Wait, this is supposed to be a 30-minute podcast. Here we are at a therapy session.
Oh,
with
sorry.
Because
Sarah.
mental health
Sorry.
is such a big issue. You can never stop talking about it. So much thing. Look,
And
Like,
it applies
even-
to so many stuff.
Yeah.
like
So
even
many-
with Shireen,
every
like
day.
because I obviously know Shireen the longest, and I tell her sometimes like she has such a short attention span for problems. Like she literally could think of, like it'll like be the next day and she's already over it, or like not she's not over it, but like it's out of sight, out of
Because se
mind.
murió ya, all right, Barry, let's
And
go.
I always tell
Push
her
it.
like you need to take a step back. You need to allow yourself to feel what you feel, process that, and then you let it go.
but
Because
I don't like to feel.
that's a problem. I feel like
Why?
feeling is
I'm
part
fine.
of being human.
I understand.
I feel like if you don't
But
feel,
no,
it'll
every-
catch up to you eventually.
I
And
don't
I-
agree with that. You know why?
I feel like
Because
it's gonna catch up to me.
I feel
I don't
too.
think it's gonna catch up to me. I don't
I've
think.
heard that from a lot of
Yeah,
people. Like, what's wrong with you?
I
And I'm
don't-
like, listen, we got to go to work.
I
We
don't.
got to get through it.
I
We
don't
gotta-
hoard my feelings. Once I feel it, I let it out, and I'm done with it. I have no baggage
I
with
feel
that.
like
I'm
there's-
very emotional. I'm mad emotional.
You are.
I'm very
I,
emotional.
I'm biased. I don't fuck with Scorpios. I love you to death, but
Yeah,
I
but
can't
I'm
speak on
very
Scorpios.
emotional,
but-
and I feel everything very deeply. But when I'm done,
But and you know what? That's your thing. Like when you feel it, you go through it, and you're over it. Me, I feel like okay, every situation has a problem, and there's a solution. So what's the solution? Okay, let's say it's a bad relationship. All right, we leave or we fixing? What we doing?
But you
Like,
see,
one
this
or
is
the
where
other.
me and her bump heads.
And
Not
he, like-
everything is so black and white.
No, it is, but it is.
No, it's not.
It is. So for me, like okay, for
Not
example,
everything is-
recently we
so
went through
bad
something,
to
right?
live like that though.
Like, look-
sometimes we dwell too much and stuff.
So,
and that's
okay.
not
Okay, not
healthy.
saying that what I
Okay,
do is right
recently-
and hers is wrong,
right,
but
I
I
don't want
feel
to
like
mention what it is, but recently me and him went through something really traumatic, right? And like, you know, one wants to like sit down, cry, talk about it, and I'm not like I'm like this.
obviously I'm that one.
That was him. And me, I'm the in my mind, I don't there's no time there's no time to dwell. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna do that. This is how it's gonna be.
But
like,
you know
I
why?
everything
Hold
to
on.
fix it mode, not let me dwell.
But let me
on it
tell
and
you why.
waste the
Because
fix it mode.
sometimes I feel like I will eventually get to the fix it mode, but in that moment I have to allow myself to feel.
And that's okay.
And I
you
can't-
gotta
I can't
understand-
just
That's
shut it
him,
out and
but
do
me,
it.
I'm not like that.
But
We're-
that's just a coping mechanism.
That is a coping
no
mechanism,
one's
yeah.
stronger here. This is how she deals.
And that's how I do,
you deal.
exactly.
You can have two people that
Yeah.
have had, let's say, an abortion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Topic of women and moms. One girl done went to work the same day.
Yeah.
The other girl's gonna lay up for 3 months. Every
exactly.
year when that day comes, she's gonna remember. She's gonna light a cupcake. The other girl don't even remember the day or the moment or the whatever.
Exactly.
Is one better than the other or
No.
different?
Oh, that's
you
funny.
know, like.
What birthdays?
No,
No, I'm
abortions.
just saying,
She's
like,
saying
if
that
it's
there's
an
one
abortion,
person
one
who has an
person will
abortion who
dwell
cries
and
and
go
dwells,
crazy, and the
puts a
other one's
cupcake
like-
on the day of that, and the other person's abortion goes to work, doesn't remember, doesn't even know the day she had the abortion.
Yeah, like.
I'm not that.
I feel like when
Everyone's
you abort the
different.
baby, if you are pro-abortion, which I am, I am pro-abortion. I
You're
feel like
pro-choice.
I'm pro-choice.
Pro-choice,
You're right,
yeah.
and I feel like there's a lot of shit that happens, and sometimes mistakes do happen. And although there's those people at the Planned Parenthood, there's no mistake. There are mistakes, And look at some kids that have mental health issues. It's because of the way they're raised. If you are not ready to have a baby, and you know that before the baby, get rid of it. Save that baby a lifetime
give
of
it up for
trauma.
adoption.
Or not
Give
even.
it up
Sometimes
for-
you get up to a trauma, they go to a foster care. Then they go to a bad family because the family wants the money. Then they get then they live on the street. And what happens?
I just
it's
think,
downhill
and
from
my
there.
opinion about the whole abortion thing is, you are a woman. You know what you do with your body. Sometimes you're forced to do something with your body that
I
you're
think
not.
it's a decision between you and your God, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like
It's the woman's
yeah,
decision.
it's
But
your
again,
decision.
when we did have this topic, we did discuss that if
Remember.
you're gonna be careless, then yeah, that's wrong. But if it happened once or twice,
no, they go, this is my 7th abortion.
like, come
No,
on,
I am not
that's-
saying like that.
I
I'm-
agree.
I'm
no,
not
I
referring
know
to
you're
that.
not.
I'm
I
just
know
saying,
you're
like, there's
not.
mistakes that happen, Like, let's say you have sex and you were
Well,
intoxicated.
the 7th time wouldn't be a mistake, bitch. That's a choice. Just like relationships,
That's why I say you
motherfucker.
and your God gonna get you. This
But,
is
you know,
karma. Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's this. It should be your option, and I'm pro because there's things that happen. Like, there's sometimes when I'm young and I dwell, like I see families or like me, for example, I'll go to like nice restaurants with my husband or like nice vacations, and I'll see this like nice American family doing things with their family, And I wasn't raised like that, you know?
We were not
Like,
raised.
we maybe went to Coney Island from Brooklyn. That's what was our trip, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe we went one summer here. I remember once I worked I was like 8, 9 years old. I was bagging groceries at Stop One in Brooklyn.
She's been
and
working
I
since
made
day
like
one.
$5,000 to $6,000. I was 8 years old, bagging groceries. But like $80 here. You know, when you're young,
They tip.
they give you good tips.
They're like, oh, look at this hard working.
They
And I
tip.
would tell my mom, Mommy, look, I made $80. Mommy, look, I made $70. Mommy, look. And she would save all my money because what I needed.
She
all I-
would save it. Oh, my mom would have stabbed. That
Oh,
would
my aunt took that money,
She
but
saved
she
it,
saved
and we
it.
went to Brazil that year,
Oh.
and like everyone, and all I wanted was Cinderella light up shoes. Give me Cinderella light up shoes, and I was happy. Like that's what I wanted.
Nothing's changed.
And
Now they're just called
Hustling bags
red
since
bottoms.
Red bottoms.
But I'm saying is no, and that was like one of like the times. But like I look at families now, and even what me and my husband do with my kids, and I'm like, we never did that with my
Right,
kids.
it's the evolution of how things are changing because now we're a new generation. And what kills, I have a young mom, and your mom is pretty young too. My mom wants to go on all the vacations with me and Sebastian. I wanted to.
My mom too.
I wanted to post a picture of throwback from when we went on the Disney cruise. My mom was in every single picture with my son. I did not have one, and I'm like, yo, I called, and then she's like,
Shout
oh,
out to
you
Carmen.
know, the daycare, you know, unfortunately, I could go, you sure you want to rent a beach house for Sebastian for his birthday? Because it's not like I'm going to be there. I'm like, you didn't do none of this with me and Janice, but now you want to be, you know, she was just wanted for me to wait for the summer for when she could go.
and not only
And
that,
that's okay because she gets to experience that. But
No, and that's why, like, it's you kids feel guilty too. Like, for example, right? Like, we'll go somewhere with my mom, and like my mom will help watch the kids. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere, but then I feel guilty leaving my mom there with the kids, you know. So at some point, I have to always incorporate.
Why? Grandparents are entitled to stay with your kids. I believe that
you
wholeheartedly.
don't need to feel guilty.
I do know because my mom makes me feel guilty. Like, and I understand growing up, my
Your
mom
mom
didn't
is
have
a rare
everything.
gem.
She didn't.
My aunt is a rare gem.
My mom, when we were 6, my mom's like, I raised my kids. So I used to be like, hey, I'm only 6. I can't do this hair. What do you mean? Like, my mom definitely, I feel like, and now
But
she,
now you understand why.
yeah, now I see it. I'm like, yo, she was, and my mom was, when I was a bit, we lived in Dykeman. And my
Shout
mom
out to
used to
Dykeman.
work. My mom used to be a bottle service girl.
Oh,
with the
shit.
bonbons.
At Jimmy's Brown Cafe, where all the baseball players, and my mom used to come with all these autographs, and I used to be like,
Yeah,
okay.
my mom used to be a.
They're probably worth a lot right now.
Jimmy's.
Back in the
that
day when there wasn't Uber, you had to call cab in Uptown. The taxis were everywhere.
hybrids.
Black cars. We didn't really have yellow
Yeah,
taxis.
my dad was in a taxi. All my uncles were all black.
My mom used to be bad, great body, like bomb, right? She
You
used to
guys
be
both
like,
have beautiful bodies.
my mom used to be like, go over there, like, and get a cab or whatever. And the cab thought it was, and then we would come out, the 3 kids. My mother was this baddie with 3 little kids running around, but she never missed taking us to school in the morning. She never, like, not woke up on time. Like, my mom, at the end of the day, like, she was there at every little thing, my report card, the this, the that.
little
so-
bicochito every birthday.
yeah, like, no matter
what.
what. Well, I used to have McDonald's parties with the little, that thing we would say.
I had a McDonald's party.
You had a McDonald's
You
party?
had it in the
Happy Meals and the diaper
You were
with the
popping.
purple thing.
What the
I got
what was
that
it?
picture.
Me too.
Oh my God, I'm so bringing
Y'all lucky you had
those.
McDonald's. We didn't have McDonald's. I know
Because it's probably like
Shireen, I'm sorry, I
17
can't
of
agree.
y'all,
I had a
Shireen.
you had a
McDonald's.
McDonald's birthday. He's 17. He has 8 brothers.
I have 7 brothers and 1 sister, and I definitely had a
And I
McDonald's
have 11,
party.
but my brothers are so big. By the time it was celebrate birthday, they were out the house.
But I like, for me, like, my mom, because this is a Moms on Air podcast. I think one thing I've learned from her is like resilience, because if you put her and my dad in the same equation, she's probably taking all the punches. And I don't mean physically. I
100%.
mean the issues like when my siblings growing up, financial, emotional, family. And it's just so crazy to see how tall she stands and how she continues to stand, and how honestly, like, it's just such an inspiring thing, which is why I think that I identify myself as like a male feminist, because without my mom, I am nothing. And without like the women in my life, I'm nothing. And it's just crazy to see how no matter what, you know, you could always make it on the other side and, you know, live a fulfilled life and be successful and have a strong family. And no matter how many times the odds are against you, you can still be strong and do what you need to.
You know, I hope
do for your
all of
family.
us that when our kids grow up, like you see how we're like, you know, I wish my mom was like this, I wish like that. I hope our kids don't say that. Like, I hope that they live the life that they want. I know that's such
My
a
kid, you want to know what with my daughter? Zoe. It had to be Zoe. So the other day, my friend's son comes to the house. the father is not around right now, so he's acting out. So I'm like, let's bring him over. We're gonna whatever. So we're hanging out, and I'm being like super by the book, mom. Like, so that behave, and I'm like being nice. We go to the circus, we do this and that. So he goes, Mommy, you should be the mom you are, like when other people are there.
This is why
Not
Zoe needs
just-
her show.
She's like, not just like be that.
My twin.
Not just be that mom when there's people looking.
She's like, you need to act like that. Like when people are there, be like that mom all the time. I was like, Zoe, what do you mean? Yeah, mom, because you're like acting like, be like her. I was like, I was trying to prove a point and tell her whatever. He's 4, you're older, you know. I'm like, if you did what you had to do, I wouldn't be the mean mommy.
All right, you're blaming the child.
Long story short, she straight played me.
Yes,
Like,
she did.
like, Mommy,
and-
Kids are smarter than you know.
And not for nothing, like I really listen to my kids, and I always like. I feel like periodically I kind of ask them if we could change 3 things, like what would we? How can I be a better mom? I ask them.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
and they'll tell me, they're like, well, when we gotta go to sleep, like don't scream down. If you just can come down, and then you can look at us like, and then we'll know.
And that's and that, my friends, is
but
called.
that's an easy thing to change.
And that,
like
my
a-
friends, is called communication.
Yeah, like that's my one takeaway as a mom that I kind of learned, and I say this to Shreen a lot. Like, don't talk to them like they're with kids. Like, it literally is open communication.
Yeah.
She talks to Pro like that.
And Pro too.
What do you mean?
Like, oh my chica, you want your little baby?
I'm always gonna talk like that to my
Itchy
babies.
Mickey, what is the little
Those
thing you
are my
call it?
babies. I'm like, Papa, Jumpa, Chuko, Pucha. We'll make our own language, and they just look at it and smile, and they love it. And
I
love
do
it,
that a
and-
little bit, but for me, like, I like
They're babies. You have to treat them like babies. You know, for example, this is not even an
Ichi
example.
Papa.
Itchy Papa had a long run.
So, make a long story short today, right? I told Alexander, you want to eat pizza? He goes, yeah, Mom, I think I'll have pizza. I think that's a good idea. So instead of my husband cooking, you know, because I didn't prepare food because he was late at the house today, I said, you know, just order Domino's, boom, problem solved. I already convinced him that that's what he's going to have, so he's okay. So my husband calls, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Alexander wants pizza. He goes, Mama, I did not say that. I did not say I want pizza. I'm like, Alexander, we just agreed you're going to have pizza. He goes, no, Mama. You said we should have pizza. And I said, maybe that's a good idea. I didn't say I wanted pizza. And I turned around and my husband's on speaker and he just starts laughing. I look at him like, but we just agreed. He goes, yes, Mommy, but that's not exactly how you said it.
You about to
And
be
this is
in
my
my
son is
world
3.
real
The way he
quick.
said that. And I'm like,
He's like,
Everything
no, boo,
you
that's
say
your
will-
idea. Don't
can
put
and will
words
be
in
held
my
up.
mouth.
Say like, I suggested to Alexander to have
yes.
pizza,
And he wanted
agreed.
me to say that it was my idea. He goes, Mommy, it was your idea to have the pizza. That's why he
Everything
was
you say
principal.
will and can be used against you in the court of law.
Well,
An
this
ex-
has
an
been a
exam's world.
very
Amazing. And I think
podcast to kick off our season.
yes, mental health, guys. Happy Mental Health Day. We're gonna air this podcast tonight.
It's
I
funny,
don't
once
think...
we finish talking, I'd be like, damn, I said all that. You guys get all of our truth. So I just want to say,
And look, we're recording, so
And
you
we
know
are,
this is
right.
live. We're not editing nothing. You're gonna get this video on YouTube just the way it is, and you're gonna see. And I know there are 3 moms here and a male aspect. So the male point of view helps because you know he takes the husband and the boyfriend side right now, and like I just feel like you're gonna get so many different views on so many different things with so many different kids. And
I think, in my opinion, if you or someone you know is suffering from mental health, I think it's important to seek help. There's no shame in it. I know there's a negative
Yeah,
stigma, a negative
especially in our
connotation
community, absolutely.
to mental health, but seek help. There's a lot of
What's the
people willing to
hotline?
help. I don't know the hotline, but Google it real quick.
well, mentalhealth.gov. If you guys go to mentalhealth.gov, they have everything. What is mental health? What you feeling? Like even some like early warning signs, right? Eating, sleeping too much, too little, pulling away from people, unusual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb. I feel like some of this is like me
feel
right
like that
now.
every day.
Feeling helpless, hopeless, smoking, drinking,
let's
using
call.
drugs, feeling unusual, yelling, fighting with family and friends. There's like experiencing severe mood swings, like stuff like that, which is crazy because if you think about it, we all suffer that a lot, right? Like how many times you feel like you need your own space, how many times you feel like you're
All the time.
suffering. Yeah. And
the
so, you know, you have to differentiate too what's really mental health.
And in school, they
what is
teach us
just
that in order to be the best counselor, you have to get counseling yourself. So even the professional gets help too.
I think
so.
I'm gonna get counseling soon,
I do too.
but like individually. But I want to
Yeah.
do it with
How
like
do
a
you even
pastor.
do that? How do you find like in closing, right? Like, is there like a website you can go to find providers? Like,
So
how do you
if
pick?
you
Is it
have
a
health
therapist,
insurance,
psychiatrist?
you call the back of your insurance card, and they will show you in network who takes your insurance and actually could be a good counselor
And
for
you need
you,
a therapist or a counselor? Or what's
Well, I think the term would be a therapist,
okay,
and they have
like a family therapist.
But I think
or-
if you do have a mental health diagnosis, it might be a psychotherapist that may help
Okay.
you. So there are different stages. But I think a
Psycho
therapist.
is when you need medication, or
I
when you're
believe so.
medicated.
If I'm
But
not
see,
mistaken.
that's where I mean, I know we're coming to an end with this podcast, and I don't want to reopen the situation, but it's a fine line. Like, I feel like if you go somewhere with all the symptoms or warning signs that they say are warning signs for a mental health issue, you're gonna get diagnosed for something.
No, you're
No,
not. You're
there's-
gonna
Well,
you're
there's-
gonna assign a
There's a lot of
therapist to
steps.
really like
assess you,
There's-
right?
well-
Is there like a
Well, if you're
system or a
mandated for
process
treatment, you have to take a psychiatric evaluation.
evaluation.
before you take medication? And,
Yeah, exactly. But if you're just having a bad day or you need someone to talk to and you want to see a therapist, there's nothing wrong with that.
I need
There's
that.
so many people who see therapists because they're getting a divorce. They want to get a divorce.
They're getting
They're-
older.
There's so much.
There's
I'm
just sometimes
telling
it's easier
you.
to talk to someone you don't know. you know?
Exactly.
I
Like,
talk too much. I tell you all my shit. All right, this
that
been
was
Moms
it.
on Air.
We
It
love
was
you guys.
amazing.
Thank you for listening.
Good night.
Thank you for having me.
Judgment Zone.